The most powerful force on earth is a human soul on fire. You have a deep ache in your soul for something more, to come alive, to let your passion pour from you like an endless well. When your passion comes alive, the magnificence buried deep inside of you is unleashed. Gifts and talents you never realized surface as your life unfolds like poetry. You can do hard things. I can show you how. This is Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching, where I teach you how to heal yourself from the inside out. Hey everyone, welcome back to Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching. This is Erin. So today's podcast, and actually the next 12, I'm going to be going over each of the topics that I cover in my coaching course. My idea with this is that I can help the most people possible, and you can get a sampling of exactly what I teach in my course. So I hope that you enjoy these next 12 podcasts because they're really for you. My idea with creating these tools was that, there's only one of me, and these are the tools that I use with myself and with my clients. So if I can record it, if I can get it on video, if I can find a way to share it with people, then they can use these tools to find greater peace in their lives, solve deep mysteries within themselves, and connect to themselves and their community. So I hope that you enjoy, and let me know if you have any feedback. You can email me, Erin at erincoach.com, and enjoy. Welcome back to Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching. This is Erin. So today's podcast is going to be one of the last in the series of how to coach yourself. And today I'm going to be talking about shadow work. So people, when they come to my course, I design it as the beginning part of the course. We, talk about mental, I don't want to say gymnastics, but a way to mentally organize your thoughts, emotions, your actions, your results, and plug your circumstances in so that you have a more objective view on your current reality. Once you do that, then you can start to tap into the emotions that are connected, and it starts to get more into subtle energies. That's just the design of the course on purpose. People are also doing yoga and pranayama with me that sensitizes their body to access deeper caverns of their heart, of secret pockets of tension that they're hiding within them. And by the time we get to shadow work, people are much more sensitive and aware of a lot of patterns that they might not have been aware of before. So for some people, it can be mind-blowing. Definitely lots of tears shed. I've helped people, I coach every day when we're in the course, and they have their peers to help coach them because that's what you're learning to do, right? So by the time we get to shadow work, you are ready to recruit this part of yourself and look at him or her in a different light. So shadow work. So what is your shadow? Your shadow is a crystallized version of all the things that you reject about yourself or others, and I'll explain that in a little bit. The things about yourself that you hide, the aspects that you want to keep hidden behind closed doors, right? The patterns of behaviors that you have that you don't see how maybe they can be good or productive, but you definitely do them. And you might shame yourself for doing these things, right? A lot of emotions associated with shadow is like shame, guilt, anger, frustration, being promiscuous, like all these different things that are a lot of times in our human nature to get our needs met, right? So a lot of the times our shadow aspect has different ways to manipulate the world to get their needs met. Okay, so there are good things always about your shadow. And a lot of people are afraid of their shadow. They push them away. And I see a lot in the world, these spiritual leaders that come up, even hugely in the yoga community with BKS Iyengar, Patabi Joyce, John Friend, just to name a few, people who maybe didn't do their shadow work and integrate their shadow and make peace with it, and rather behind closed doors, at some point it came out. And then there was, all this scandal, whatnot, because it wasn't integrated. You didn't make it okay. It's like if you're permanently on a diet, but you really have this craving for Oreos, and you just you lay in bed at night and you just can't stop thinking about Oreos, and you shame yourself, no, I'm never going to have an Oreo. Guess what's going to happen? It's going to build up inside of you. Nobody's around. You make that dirty little trip to the grocery store and binge on Oreos, right? So it's kind of the similar thing. It's this is a shameful part of me. What happens is, imagine there's this black hole of collected energy, and it just builds and builds and builds inside of you until it needs an outlet. It needs a release. You feel me? Nah, I mean. So what we do with shadow work is acknowledge that, yes, everybody has a shadow. Everybody has shit that we do that not our best moment, right? But it is amazing when you peek at it, come to know it, see what are you getting out of, what do you get when you act this way, right? So, for example, if I coached somebody probably a few months ago that they felt super guilty that, when they were out in public, they really love to flirt, right? And that's something that I do. My partner and I, we have an agreement, it's cool if we flirt with different people, and that's just something that is negotiated in our relationship, and we're both totally cool with it. But this particular client, she would, flirt, and then she'd feel so guilty, and shame herself. But what need was getting met under there was that her husband didn't give her enough attention, or so she felt, right? She wanted to feel sexy and desired. And even though she didn't take action upon, there's flirtation and then there's hooking up, right? So it wasn't anything like that. It was just flirting, just, being cutesy, being sweet, flirting, right? So she would do this, and then she'd shame herself, feel bad about it, guilt herself, and doing some shadow integration, we allowed it to be okay, this version of herself, and we worked through, again, what are you getting out of this behavior? There is some sort of need that needs to get met, and your shadow is well, shit, I'm going to get it met. For me, one thing about my shadow is that she would speak uncomfortable truths because I wasn't yet equipped to be able to express my needs or express my perspective on something because I didn't feel safe to do so. And so my shadow, who is this bad bitch that takes charge and gets stuff done, would speak my uncomfortable truths for me. Now, you might be thinking, okay, well, my shadow punches holes in the walls and my shadow wants to get drunk and not go to work. So are you saying I should tap into that? Kinda. So acknowledging what behaviors you would like to engage in, if all bets were off, right? If I was okay, apocalypse is a week from now, all bets are off. You can just let yourself be as dirty and nasty and, do whatever you want. What behavior would come out? This can be a fun activity. So write it down. What would come out? Would you go gambling, smoking, drinking? Would you tap into all of your vices? Would you, say the thing to the person that you really have wanted to say? Would you take revenge on something? Get it all down. Get it all out. Why is this valuable? Because there is some sort of, again, need that's being met here. And we can look at it. So, for example, getting revenge on someone. Let's just take that as an example. So what is the feeling you're seeking from that? If you thought about that, satisfaction, okay? So the feeling of satisfaction, what is the need that wasn't met? Acknowledgement, being heard, some sort of connection, justice, right? So these are needs that we need to get met And so there's an emotion that is sort of like our, how do I say, like a little bell that's like, hey, like a little alarm saying, hey, I have a need that's not met. Okay. And so from there, before that, we have some sort of like idea of behavior, then the emotion, right? If we follow the clear formula, then the action. Okay. And then we have the need getting met. So we can rewrite this a little bit, right? So we have the emotion and we have the need that needs to get met. The thoughts and the actions that we take around that, we can swap a little bit. But by going in and seeing what behavior we would want to engage in and trying to understand why, we can understand ourselves more and know that our shadow is just trying to get our needs met in the way that they know how. Now, it might not be the best way, certainly. If you like light somebody up with like some sort of shotgun, like that's, I'm not saying to do that. But I'm also not saying that people don't have thoughts about that when they're like incredibly angry. Of course, look at our world right now. It's filled with violence. But again, if we tap into unmet needs and the emotion behind it, maybe there is a different thought that will create that bit of satisfaction, right? Like, having a conversation with the person or, what have you. And then the action could be different, which would lead to the need getting met, right? And you can get creative with that. So shadows are very valuable as far as being communicators of unmet needs. Another thing that shadows can do to cultivate your shadow that you can do is getting through hard stuff, right? I have been working with a friend lately, just kind of getting through some heartache that he's going through, and he is tapping into his shadow self. And he needs to, honestly, because it's sort of tearing him up. So we can recruit our shadow for difficult things that we need to get done in our life and take like the essence of the shadow or embody certain parts of the shadow so that we can show up in the way that we want. For example, when I go to the skate park, I get fucking scared. Like the tricks that I'm doing lately are super rad, by the way. I'm like super digging it. And it's a great outlet for me. But I just did, I nailed 180 off the coping, right? Which is super scary. Like you go from frontwards to backwards for a second and then back to frontwards on this coping where you can definitely fall and like get a really bad concussion. I think it's one of those pivotal tricks that once you get that, it's like you level up as a skater, park skater, and you can unlock a lot of other tricks. So for me, I was just scared shitless. I had this gal. And it's like I placed my trust in someone who I barely knew just because she was sort of a part of our, skater girl clique, and barely knew her. She was not paying attention. I asked her for some advice because she could do a trick, and she wasn't even watching me. And I went to do this thing, and she gave me one piece of advice. I was the one that followed it, but I hurt myself really bad. And she kind of like skated away and didn't even watch. And I was like, part of me was like, Erin, why do you trust people like that? But the other part of me was like, fuck, like that sucked. I don't want to do that again. So it took me a long time to be able to build up to like even think about doing that trick again. I mean, months. And I just got it this last week. Who I had to recruit was my bad bitch, right? So she was like, all right, listen, we're doing this. Made it non-negotiable. Bend your fucking knees is what she told me. Bend your knees. For some reason, when you're the force of when you're skating, especially on a half pipe, like you go down, knees are bent, and when you come up, I would have a tendency to straighten my legs, which you maybe should straighten a little bit, but have some bend. I wasn't bending enough. And so that's what would make me fall. And I fell really bad. And like not just that one time, but one other time I kind of tried it. So I recruited her. She made it non-negotiable. She sort of gave me tough love. Okay, bend your knees. You're going to turn. Like there's no stopping. There's no like halfway, half-ass anything. Because when the thing about it's like whether you're driving in traffic or you're doing a skate trick or any sort of like high-risk activity, when you go for it, you need to commit. Or that's when you get hurt, right? If you like half-ass, that's when an accident happens. You're like, oh, I'm not sure if I should go. You should go, and then you get an offender bender because like you were not confident. So my shadow gives me confidence. She allows me to tap in, and maybe in that moment, I'm not like tuned into all the fear centers like of my primal brain, because she's above that. Like, just to give you a little bit of persona of my shadow, she's a little bit above that. She can be a little mean. She can be a little harsh. So I definitely need to keep her in check. She expresses herself sexually. There's a lot of aspects of my shadow. She's also a boss babe, right? So she gets stuff done. So shadow work, so I'm kind of went over like almost like in the Yoga Sutras where Patanjali goes over Samadhipada and Sadhanapada. Samadhipada first is like, oh, this is all the benefits you can get from yoga. So these are some of the benefits you can get from shadow work. So if you're sold, keep listening. This is how you do it. So similar to avatar work, you are going to tap into your shadow. So the first activity that I gave was like list out all the things. Again, if the apocalypse was in a week, what's all the things that you would do? Okay. So you kind of have a sense of like where we're going here. Another activity that you can do to really tap into your shadow self is to list out like, what does he or she look like? How does he or she carry herself or himself or they self? How do they dress? How do they talk? You can get down to the nitty gritty, like what do they eat for breakfast? Like how do they command a room? Like what are their sayings? Do they have a tagline? How do they handle situations is a big one, right? So you can add as much backstory to this as you want. And then you can practice playing this version of yourself. And it's actually pretty fun. So say like, you're like, okay, I am going to recruit the power of my shadow today. I'm going to dress like her. So I'm going to go for the, back part of my closet with the extra tight pants and like the, like black, like low cut blouse. That's also like a crop top, right? Something I wouldn't necessarily wear just anywhere, and hoop earrings and like do my hair up real big. And so then I look in the mirror, I'm dressed as such, right? I'm a certain version of myself, which can be fun and exciting to know this version of yourself. It's like if you're in a relationship for a long time and then like your partner dresses up like super hot for like a Valentine's Day and you're like, oh, hello. Oh, hi. Like, you don't usually do your hair like that. Like, ooh, you're wearing something different. Ooh, a button down like with, the collar just so, or like, oh, wow, new pants, or, even like a different attitude. Like I know that Matt embodies this sort of like je ne sais quoi when we are, getting ready to be intimate or have sexy times. His brow kind of furrows and he gets like this more like testosterone-y version of him. And I'm just like, So once you have, like, you've dressed up, look in the mirror, like, who do you want to be? You get to choose. Isn't that fun and exciting, right? How do you want to think, like, with this new persona? It's like when we would do this as kids, right? So we would dress up like Superwoman or like Batgirl or Catwoman. I really liked Catwoman. I thought she was badass. And then for men, like the Hulk, like the Flash, Spider-Man, Superman, fill in the blank. So taking on that persona, and you can even kind of like borrow from inspirational sources to be like, no, you know what? I want to incorporate this in, and I'm going to choose to do so. And it's part of my shadow now. Boom. For example, if I feel like I'm in a comedic rut, I will listen to some comedians that I quite like. And then I will get inspired by their way of humor and their perspective on the world. And then I might, like repeat a few of their jokes, or I might even just take their style of how they perceive the world with a little bit more lightness. A little bit more nitty gritty, like honing in on specific details and like finding the humor in it. We do that with each other too, right? If you hang out with a person for so long, you're going to adopt some of their adopt some of their characteristics. It just happens. That's why it's important to be surrounded by like inspirational people or people that are emotionally supportive or, like productive, right? So it's like my sensei used to say this, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. And I used to argue with him over that because I would hang out with people that treated me like shit because I wanted acceptance. And so it took me a long time, and I grew up and I realized, oh, fuck, he's right. Really, like the energy circle that you keep is going to have an impact on how you grow and whether or not you grow and whether or not you're supported. So, speaking of support, you can recruit your shadow self to support you. Maybe you need a firm voice. Like I certainly did when I was like in my teenage years, and sometimes even too, I'll be like, I don't want to do the thing. Like when I have to do hard things, like if I want to go like lift weights, or if I want to, do a trick that's like difficult for me at the skate park. Even sometimes showing up for like business stuff. Just like adorning that air of confidence is super helpful, and it's always there for you. So you can recruit your shadow to make breakthroughs in your life, and developing this aspect of yourself can be helpful to know yourself. Like, so shadow integration work, right? Acknowledging these pieces of yourself. Like, so for example, the gal that really wanted to flirt, like, who knows, like maybe she didn't get that attention need met, right? And then flirting turned into like all these like shameful, dirty, and then all of a sudden she cheats, right? So like what I'm saying is acknowledge it, right? Live it a little bit. It is an aspect of you. And, as far as right or wrong, like maybe we can suspend that for a little while. And again, look into emotions, and that the broad palette of emotions, all of them are okay. And that everyone's trying to get their need met, right? So that neutralizes things, and that your shadow is trying to help you do that, right? So the way that you go about it, though, you have a choice in. So that's why acknowledging that there's an actual need to get met, right? It might not actually be the action, or you might have a say in which action you choose to get that need met. Hopefully that makes sense. So for example, if you're like, well, I have a need for sex. Like, okay, I get it. Maybe underneath that, though, there's a need for connection, right? Maybe there's a need for physical intimacy. Does it have to be sex? Maybe it does. I'm not saying it's not. But if you don't explore, you'll never know. And what I'm saying is, wouldn't it be tragic that, say, if you're in a relationship and you're like, well, I fucking need this, and you go and cheat, have sex with somebody who you're not in, just say if you're in a monogamous relationship, and then, oh my God, my need's still not fulfilled. I was barking up the wrong tree. Now, I know for me, when I was younger, I used to do that a lot because I didn't realize I deserved to get my needs met. And that's something I've been exploring a lot lately, and you're probably going to hear me talk about a lot more on the podcast. By the way, I have been doing a lot of inner work on attachment style and love languages and nonviolent communication and the drama triangle and the empowerment dynamic. All these things you're going to hear about, and I'm actually adding to my course because they've had such a huge impact on my life. And Matt and I working through things in our relationship, which I signed up for a conscious partner. So did he. And so we definitely have times where we get uncomfortable and then we stick with each other, even if it feels like just a thread by a thread sometimes, even just for a tiny bit. But we're so committed and so in love that we choose to do this work. So keep an eye out for that. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about strategies for navigating your relationships. And yeah, I think that's all I have for today, for today's podcast. My birthday is this week. It is March 9th. So if you're listening to this podcast, shoot me an email. Say happy birthday, or like what's up, or I don't know, send me a picture of you doing yoga pose or something. And just say happy birthday. That would be very lovely. My email is Erin@erincoach.com. And I hope that you have a fantastic week. And as always, thank you so much for listening. And one last thing is I have 10 spots left for my August coach training from August 20th to the 27th. Everything that I've gone over in the How to Coach Yourself series, including ones that haven't released yet, as well as the different additional information is going to be presented during that coaching course. So if you're interested, if you've been listening to my podcast and you're like, okay, I have definitely seen a transformation in this human being, and she hasn't turned into an arrogant prick. So I know that her method is grounded. I've got a lot of good shit to share. I really do. And I care a lot. And my program also has a mentorship. It also has a mastermind. The deal, it's like $4,500 to come take my coach course, which it's like an 8-day course. And then there's a 2-day add-on, which I'll be talking about in future podcasts. But you won't find a better deal. Like, I'm just saying. I have a lot of support. I have the staffing. I have the method. And I went to the life coach school, which is a great school. And I've adopted, some of Brooke's teachings and then, from other spiritual leaders and just from my own experience. There's a lot of techniques, probably more than half of them, that I literally just made up myself. So if you want to come and learn from me, I'd be honored. I would love to have you in my tribe. So you can visit thrivewitherin.com. You can visit thriveyogafit.com, or you can email me. All right, I think that's it. Have a great week. Namaste.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to support the podcast and if it's helping you, please consider writing a review. You can go to iTunes or Google Play, go into the search bar and type in Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching, scroll down, and you can leave a review. This helps other people to find me as well as bumps us up in the search ratings. Also, this podcast is sponsor-free, so that means we don't receive anything for doing it. If you feel so inclined and this podcast is helping to support you and you want to return the favor and help to support any production costs of the podcast, feel free to give a donation to a Venmo link, Thrive Yoga Fit, or PayPal, Erin@erincoach.com. If you don't have the means, don't worry about it. We're not going anywhere. You're all good. But if you would like to give back, you can give back in those ways. Last thing, we have a coaching certification coming up, and it's 7 days of an intensive work, followed by a 3-month mentorship. You will not find another teacher that's more passionate and dedicated than I am to my students and their learning, and not just their learning, but the application and how they show up in their life. If you've been listening to this podcast and it's had a huge impact on your life, just imagine what it would be like to spend 7 intensive days with me and then a 3-month mentorship. You can check that out at thriveyogafit.com/coach-certification. Again, thriveyogafit.com/coach-certification. Thank you so much. Namaste.